Thanks for staying with us, everyone. Let's turn our attention now to Africa. In a dramatic turn of events, former President of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Joseph Kabila, has been sentenced to death in absentia by a high military court on charges of treason and war crimes. Prosecutors accused Mr. Kabila of collaborating with the Rwanda-backed rebel group M23, whose offensives earlier this year left more than 3,000 dead and nearly 1 million displaced. The court also ordered him to pay over $30 billion in damages. Mr. Kabila, who ruled from 2001 to 2019, has lived in exile since 2023. His conviction has sharply divided opinion. The government calls it a victory for justice, while critics, including Human Rights Watch, say the trial was politically motivated and lacked due process. The verdict risks complicating ongoing peace talks with M23 in Doha and deepening political divisions in a country still grappling with decades of conflict. Mr. Kabila's current whereabouts remain unknown, and an arrest warrant has been issued. Livingstone Wechi, he's an international law expert. He joins me now via Zoom. Good to have you join us, Livingstone, for more on this.
Thanks for having me.
So let's talk more on this. I'm sure you've been following. I mean, you and I have had conversations back and forth about what's going on in the DR Congo. And now President Kabila's supporters are calling this sentence a political vendetta. Government says, look, this is a right step in the right direction. I mean, what do you make of it, especially how he was tried and how he was sentenced in absentia?
Well, basically, this is a build-up in the ongoing disputes in that region. And it reminds you of the Nuremberg trial, the post-World War II trial of the 24 Nazi leaders by the power blocs, the US, Great Britain, Russia, the USSR at the time, France, and so on, where the expose was made about the atrocities perpetrated by the Nazi government was reviewed, as it were. But you see, the perspective of trial in absentia is quite controversial within the scope of international law. There are very stringent grounds on which a trial can be conducted in absentia. Even in Nigeria here, the Administration of Criminal Justice Act can at some point permit for the trial in absentia of accused persons or defendants, but provided they have been, first of all, arraigned and they have taken their plea, and they must be present in court to take their plea, and they must have been granted bail, and there have been adjournments on about 2 occasions, and they have failed to appear without any reasonable cause. But in this particular case, the situation in DRC portends a sort of political connotation. That is because of the ongoing rivalry between Joseph Kabila, who succeeded his father, Laurent Kabila, at the time, who ruled up until 2019, and is being accused of having links with M23 rebels who are alleged to be sponsored by Rwanda. So that brings you to the issue of the intentions and motivations behind this particular trial, that there is a tendency, or there is a very strong opinion that it's not unconnected with regard to his rivalry with the sitting president of DRC. Now, my worry is that it was conducted by a military tribunal, and he was not even given an opportunity to be legally represented. And this is a controversy that goes to the roots of the principle of natural justice, as it were. So how do we move from here? How do you justify such a trial, irrespective of individual perspective or perceptions about the person of Joseph Kabila? Remember, there is a report that he has an option to appeal against this judgment, but that must be on the ground of any perceived procedural irregularity and not to question the merits of the case. That is what the report says. But this is going to bring further dividing lines in the ongoing negotiations in Doha. Remember,
and I was just going to go there, Livingstone. First of all, let's not forget the weight of this sentence. It is an outright death sentence. But you know, you were talking about the talks in Qatar between DRC authorities and the M23 rebels, and I know you were touching on it. But does this sentence pose not just a risk to the process, but just generally the search for peace in the east of the country?
Yes, it poses a very strong threat to the ongoing negotiation, because the government of DRC is said to be negotiating with M23 in Doha, same group that is alleged to have links with Joseph Kabila. Now, if Kabila is alleged to have links with M23 and you are negotiating with that same group, you have gone ahead to indict as well as convict to death their principal, then trust issues will arise. There will be a breakdown in the negotiation, a likelihood of that. I'm not saying of a fact, but there is a tendency that that ongoing negotiation may have a breakdown. You see, in all of these, there is the devil in all the details, because there is an allegation at some point that Joseph was accusing the DRC president and the government of using the judicial system for self-serving purposes to go against political opponents. And if that is anything to go by, what has just happened has gone to confirm that a witch cried in the night, a child died in the morning. And that is why watchers internationally are of the view that this current conviction and this current sentencing is highly political. This is not to say that...
Again, apologies for butting in. Just speaking to the politics of this, because I want us to stay there. In the east of the country, Kabila still commands very strong loyalty. Ahead of the elections in 2028, could this also now deepen political and regional divides in that country? That's DR Congo.
Well, you see, we're still on that same page. His influence, M23, the east of the country. This same east of the country is said to be where he visited sometime in May. This trial, I believe, commenced, was it in July? He visited that same part of the country in May. As of today, nobody knows where he is. And he has a very strong influence. And again, these are factors, political considerations and exigencies are being put on the table as to the effect of this particular development. Because you cannot take away the growing or the unsurmountable influence of Joseph Kabila in that DRC situation, particularly within the Eastern Bloc. So if that is a question to be addressed, it then means that the government may not have their way, because it will not be sufficient for them to convict Joseph Kabila, whereas they have his mass army of support group to grapple with. So if you don't look at the political implications of this development, then you would have been playing to the gallery, or as it were, you would have been deceiving or misleading yourself or working in self-delusion, because the bloc that stands in support for Joseph Kabila appear to have the capacity to unsettle the government and to cause instability and to destabilize the entire process. So you must walk a bit on eggshells and be highly diplomatic, because obviously force cannot resolve this dispute. It must take measures of concession by both sides. If the president of DRC, this is a country that has had chains of rebellion. Rwanda and Uganda backed a rebellion by Laurent Kabila to unseat Mobutu. When Laurent Kabila died, 10 days after his son takes over, remember Laurent Kabila was assassinated, Joseph Kabila took over. It has been a chain of political rebellion after political rebellion, with the result of sustained political instability in that country, bounded by its neighbors that have all manners of connection.
Very predatory. Yes. I mean, that perhaps one of the biggest challenges for DR Congo, surrounded by very predatory neighbors who continue to face on the instability there. And we'll see how, you know, all of this come into play in this latest sentence. Always a pleasure speaking with you, international law expert Livingstone Weche.
Thank you.
All right, that's What Now. Thank you so much for watching. I am Precious Amayo.